I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Village Council of Corrales to order, please. Those of you with cell phones, please turn them off or set them to vibrate so they don't disturb any discussion that's going on. And once you've done that, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now to the luckiest man alive, Councilor Miera.
Aquí.
Councilor Woolman.
Here.
Councilor Knight.
Here.
Councilor Alsobrook.
Here.
Councilor Burkett.
Here.
Councilor Murray.
Here.
We're all here tonight. I need a is everybody a chance to read the agenda? I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Who made the motion?
Brad. I'll make it, but I want to make it with an amendment that we exclude something from the agenda. So that we're excluding.
So we have a motion and a second. Who's the second?
I'll second.
Okay, and now you want to make an amendment?
Correct, that we remove item number 2 from new business from the agenda. That item was discussed 2 meetings ago, and we are only allowed to reconsider things the next meeting.
Actually, there's a point of order on that. We can do that. We are allowed to do that.
Rule
Melanie?
278 would disagree with that.
Melanie? Well, first of all, is there a second?
Yeah, I second.
Okay, we got a second from Councilor Woolman. Melanie, you want to address that? Oh, Representative,
It's from our rules, Melanie, from our recent rules.
If there's a question that is not specifically addressed in our rules, then our rules do say we can.
Can I read what
defer.
our rules say then? Because it specifically addresses it. It says either the motion to reconsider or the notice of intent to reconsider must be made not later than the next regular meeting. A member of the governing body may indicate notice of intent to propose reconsideration either orally or in writing to the village clerk. So it had to happen by the last meeting.
So in Robert's Rules of Order, it does say that time amendments do not apply to a standing body, which the governing body is a standing body. And also that a motion to reconsider can be made if new information has come forward that was not available or was not presented
So
at the time the
Robert's-
vote was made.
It also says you can only do it the next meeting unless you have a specific policy, or the same meeting unless you have a specific policy that grants you one additional meeting. Now, it
So-
could be adjusted down the road, but the intent to reconsider it has to be brought up at the next meeting.
Randy, do you have any feedback on that?
Well, our newly adopted rule, that is what that rule says. I think that if there would be a motion to suspend the rule in a second, that would be the only way to do it, because I believe our rule is clear on that point. It has to be in the next meeting that after the matter was heard.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Councilor Murray, how do you vote?
Are we voting on the amendment or the?
Yeah, on the amendment.
To remove item number 2.
Yes.
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Knight? Aye. Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
And Councilor Miera?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we take 2 off. Now we're going to address the agenda. So, any discussion about the agenda? Any further discussion about the agenda? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. So now we move on to presentations. Mr. Josh Trujillo from the SJT Group is going to present our audit report.
Good evening, councilors. Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for inviting me to your council meeting this evening to present the results of the fiscal year 2023 audit. So just a brief timeline on the audit. I know we met with a few councilors right at the end of the audit, but the audit has since been approved by the Office of the State Auditor here in New Mexico. So just wanted to give everyone a timeline. The audit for the year ending June 30th, 2023 really started right in about November. And the deadline to complete the audit is December 15th, 2023. So we did most of our audit procedures in November and December, had our exit conference back in December, submitted it to the state auditor before that December 15th deadline, and the state auditor approved it last month. So we're here now that the report is public information to present some of the information from the audit to you all. Now, you all should have a copy of the actual hard copy bound audit report. It's about 78 pages long. And that report is also available on the Office of the State Auditor website. So if anybody needed some light reading outside of this meeting, you could go onto the State Auditor's website, search for the Village of Corrales. The fiscal year 2023 audit is on there, as well as previous fiscal years. So if anybody's interested in seeing that, you can look at that. Now, so we are engaged to audit the village as a whole, but we also audit all of the individual funds that comprise the village. And through all of our audit procedures, our main responsibility is really to provide an opinion on the village's financial statements, both at that high level as well as at the individual fund level. And I'm happy to report to everybody that we did issue an unmodified or a clean opinion on the village's financial statements. Now, that doesn't mean that there were no findings or recommendations made as part of the audit. It doesn't mean that there were no adjustments made as part of our audit. It simply means that at the conclusion of our audit, we feel that the village's financial statements are materially correct. Now, in that 78-page document, there are the financial statements themselves, and then there's a lot of footnotes and schedules that support the financial statements. Our unmodified opinion is really on all of that information that's contained in that document. Just a few other things that I wanted to mention specifically related to the audit, and these are things that we also discussed during our audit exit conference with certain members of the village. If there were any difficulties we encountered in performing the audit, we would communicate that ultimately to the village council. There were no significant difficulties. Mayor, Ron, all of the departments that participate in the audit were very helpful to us in getting through our audit procedures and ultimately meeting that December 15th deadline. And that deadline has been met for the last several years also. If there were any disagreements with the village management, whether those disagreements were resolved or left unresolved, we would also be required to communicate that to you, but there were no such disagreements. And then if there were any findings or recommendations made as part of the audit, those go into the actual report themselves, and I would also communicate them to you as part of the audit. Now, we did have 2 findings that were reported as part of the fiscal year 2023 audit. Those are included at the very end of the document. So, in the 70-page range, 75, I think 76. One of them relates to just account reconciliations, financial adjustments that we had as part of the audit. Now, the village turns over to us its accounting records as part of the audit, and we go through and basically audit those records and those balances that are reported. And anytime we have significant adjustments to those balances as part of the audit, it normally warrants a finding as a result of the audit. So in the report, you can see the text of those of that finding itself. It includes, the condition we identified, the cause and effect of that type of condition, our recommendation on how to remedy it, and then the village also provides its response to that recommendation. The other finding that we had relates to the anti-donation clause that is included in the state constitution. So the state constitution includes a section, an article that basically says the village, in not so many words, can donate to a private entity, and there are several different interpretations and things that we look for as part of an audit related to the anti-donation clause. What we identified as part of the audit is that there were 3 wastewater customer accounts that were forgiven by the village during the year, and those amounted to, I want to say it was $13,000 or $14,000 in aggregate between those 3 balances. Simply because those balances were forgiven by the village, it trips that section of the state constitution in the anti-donation clause. Now, since then, the village has added those account balances back to its system. And I know that there have been discussions about possibly creating an ordinance within the village that kind of mirrors some of the text in the anti-donation clause, just to make it clear to not only the village council, but to other residents and other individuals within the village that those limitations apply, that anti-donation clause does apply to the village, and just to keep it top of mind that those types of things aren't allowed. So the village is still working through, I believe, its corrective action related to that, though. And that was the only other finding that we reported as part of the fiscal year 2023 audit. There was one other finding that was reported last year that was resolved during fiscal year 2023, which related to budgetary compliance. We didn't have any issues with the village's budgetary compliance during fiscal year 2023, so that finding was resolved as part of our audit. So really, that's most of the information that we wanted to present as it relates to the fiscal year 2023 audit. I have given my contact information to a lot of the counselors already, obviously to Mayor and to Ron, but if you all have any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Yes, sir. Councilor Mira.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was interesting, the way in which you brought up the fact that we excused those balances that someone owed us. But if they stayed on the books, wouldn't they show up as like we haven't collected them yet? And so we're kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't on that one situation. So we really do need to do a formal sort of methodology to change the manner in which we forgive, because we can't collect it. They're probably gone, and who knows why. But we have to be able to do that, because if not, it comes up as not being collected, right?
Right. So I guess it's just a method through which you say it's not collectible. Most entities will just say this balance isn't collectible for purposes of this report. We create an allowance that says, these people owe us $14,000. The business is closed, the individual is deceased, whatever the case may be, and you create an allowance that says this isn't going to be collectible, and it reduces what you show as being owed to the village. You can go through and actually forgive the account and remove it from your system. That's kind of the differentiation.
So Ron, I guess you got that one figured out, how we would do that one? Okay, so thank you very much. It's just interesting. I never heard that one done before.
It doesn't come up much, but
usually the state was giving money to somebody else and to Joe's Inn or something like that, and we're not allowed to do that. But that was interesting. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Josh, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Mr. Curry, Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. Start off with Tanya, give us a health update.
Thank you, Council, Mayor, Administrator Curry. Can everyone hear me?
Your volume is a little bit low. I don't know.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. Is that better?
I think so.
Okay. So let's start with COVID. So wastewater has started back again. 350 national sites have started within the last 2 weeks reporting wastewater again for COVID, which is good. We only have one site in New Mexico, which will be Santa Fe, and right now it is on an uptick. It started, they started reporting again. It looks like it's on an uptick, but it's really too early to say if that is an uptick in cases. What I can say is in the council packet, I had put that we had 487 cases as of 3/14 in the week. Now we're up to 478, or sorry, 457, we're up to 478. So we've increased from 22 per 100,000 to 23 per 100,000. Hospitalizations were at 12 admitted in the 7 days previous. We're now at 32 in the 7 days previous for hospitalizations. So we are seeing a little bit of an uptick. We're running about 10,000 in the hospital nationally. So I'll keep monitoring that wastewater. For influenza-like activity, that map changed also since the council packet went out. There was a lot of red. Now there are only 5 states, including New Mexico, that are red. There's one state higher, Nebraska, and District of Columbia are at the very high level. So we're still having a lot of influenza-like activity. Sandoval County is not having a lot of influenza-like activity, but there are 3 counties in New Mexico that their discharge diagnosis with COVID is over 9%. So we are seeing a little bit of an uptick in COVID. Measles, the mayor's message had a thing on measles that it was 58 cases. We're now at 64 cases of measles in the United States. So that has a longer incubation period. So we're going to keep watching the measles. And as you may have seen in the news, or if you get some of the reports, there has been some highly infectious avian flu reported in dairy cattle. New Mexico is one of those states. They do unpasteurized milk testing, and they do some testing of animals. The FDA has firmly said that the pasteurization process will not allow that to get into a human from the dairy cattle. And the dairy cattle, unlike chickens and some of the other mammals that have to be euthanized, apparently are getting well in about 10 days from the avian flu. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? Tanya, thank you very much.
I'd like to ask Chief Martinez to come up now to give a brief update on some of the projects regarding the fire department.
Thank you, Ron. Mayor, Council. As Ron stated, in our staff meeting today, I was kind of giving an update in the staff meeting and was asked just to kind of give you a briefing on what's going on within my department as far as all these projects. So those of you who may have seen Loma Larga, we've started construction again on Loma Larga from Angel Road north to the crossing that we installed a couple of weeks ago that goes underneath the main canal to get water to the Academy Road area, which our focus is the big commercial buildings, the schools. And so they're in the process of extending about 1,000 feet of 12-inch water line. And so that's moving right along. The next project that we're still kind of on hold on, it's not my project, but they're connecting to our fire suppression system, which is the elementary school. We are hoping maybe next Monday, they'll be able to start that construction where they're gonna be connecting. They'll have to cut across Corrales Road. I'm waiting for a traffic plan so we can push it through our social network and let all the citizens know that traffic may be impacted, but it's due to the public safety and fire suppression for the school. Old Church Road, we're kind of waiting to get Loma Larga completed, and then we need to go down to Old Church Road and connect along that's parallel with the cemetery to connect Loma Larga's fire suppression system to the main station's fire suppression system. So by making that connection, we have increased our capacity of the hydrants within that area of adding the Loma Larga tank, which is 84,000, and the main station is 120,000, which also helps us with redundancy. Whether a power outage is on Loma Larga and the pumps don't kick on, but the main station has power or the backup generator, we can push water either way. So we're real excited about that connection. It's going to make a huge impact as far as backup and redundancy. Andrews Lane project, we are starting to scout out the best path of least resistance for our water lines there. We have legislative funding to start that project, but we got to get some of these other projects off of our list first. And of course, Angel Road, I've been before you asking for funding. We have been receiving funding thanks to legislatures. It's just not enough to complete the project. It's just little bits and pieces. So I'm going into another strategy now of utilizing those funds, since my water line is already at Loma Larga and we already have a T already aimed up towards the top of Angel Hill. that if we can use these monies to start our water line going up the hill rather than the original idea of building the water tank and then the water lines coming down. We need funding to build the water tank on top of Angel. Gravity and the capacity of that water tank will help, all the businesses, especially the big businesses on Academy for the needed fire flow. But we're coming up with a strategy to utilize those funds so we could spend them and before they expire. So with that, that's kind of just my water projects. So I'll stand for any questions.
So what's the latest price tag on the tower at Angel Hill?
Well, it fluctuates so much because of the price of steel and availability, but I think just the water tank itself is like 1.5 million.
See, I can remember when you quoted a $600,000 price tag.
Well, that
It's
was,
been it's quite a while ago.
yeah. So,
Okay. Oh, yeah, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor. I know the school project is somewhat off in the distance, but is there any talks with APS about increasing the tank storage to cover the new construction?
so mayor, councilors, that's kind of why they're connecting with ours. So a little history about that. We test their fire hydrants. I monitor their fire pumps because we're so close, and their facility maintenance is far out. And so if there's an issue, I run down there and make sure we don't have a runaway pump and burn it out. Since their installation, we've noticed that their pump curve, as far as their performance and the flow and pressures have been going down. We had entertained the idea of talking to them. That's kind of when we found out that they were talking about expanding the school. I had no idea. So we discussed with them the option of them paying for the connection to our system so we can kind of back them up. So the capacity of our main station, along with their 60,000 gallon water tank, with the school being 100% sprinkled, should be sufficient. And in that agreement, they've allowed me to use their infrastructure as kind of like a piggyback so I can start my project on Andrews, because I don't have water anywhere near Andrews to try to protect those homes back there. But with a joint effort between, the administration, village, and APS, we're able to kind of help one another.
Okay, I was curious if maybe that since we are interconnecting all these lines and with the expansion of the school, maybe they might kick in a few more bucks to maybe help us complete some of our projects so we can improve that pressure and keep that, if this school does have a problem, we've got the water resources to back it up.
Yeah, and I think that was the intent of them funding the cost for them to go underneath Krause Road, which is probably pretty expensive because they have to put a steel sleeve, you have to get permits through DOT. And for me to allow the village of Corrales to utilize their infrastructure saved me a fortune of not trying to get a water line from Corrales Road to the Andrews area. And they did give us easement, and we already tapped into their system for the fire hydrant, which is outside their fence on Andrews right now. So that hydrant is pressurized. The homes within 1,000 feet of that hydrant can already get insurance deduction rates. So it's live. So,
all right, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Waldman.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, in going up Angel Hill, are you planning, I'm just thinking for the future and insurance costs, are you planning hydrants along, since you're going to have a line going up, will it be hydrants placed on Angel Road?
Yes. Yeah, there will be hydrants every 500 to 1,000 feet going up Angel Road. And as we put those hydrants and as we get them certified, the homeowners on Angel Road will be eligible for insurance deduction. So
Great.
it'd be probably one of the best protected roads in Corrales.
Thank you.
Well, certainly have enough water pressure if we get a tower up
But
there.
only on the
Yeah,
south side.
exactly. Any other questions?
Anybody else? Anthony, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
you're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
I'd like to ask Melanie to give a quick update on animal services.
Thank you, Ron. Mayor, council. We've had, we were hoping to get final inspections on the Animal Services building this week. But I was told by Facility Build yesterday that those final inspections cannot happen until P&M hooks up power to the building. So they said the earliest they can get out here is probably 10 days. So as soon as they hook up power to the building, final inspections can be done. So we're still looking at probably end of April before the building can open up.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, are we still waiting for the final completion and opening before we pursue any kind of financial reimbursements from whomever? Any legal challenges?
Yeah, do we see what we have? Do we see what our overall amount is?
So once, not until you cut the.
Not until it's working,
Okay.
just in case.
And licensed.
Yes,
Thank you.
permitted, whatever, yeah. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Melanie.
You know, one of the things that I have to do as administrator, and I'm happy to do it gladfully, is to try to present to the council the best information that I can bring forward to the council regarding everything that we do and everything that we pursue. And as items develop, sometimes that information evolves in ways that surprise us. Sometimes we find information that is different than what we understand. Sometimes we find information that we didn't know that we were going to find. We don't know what we didn't know. And so over the last 3 weeks, I would say, through the process of evaluating things that have come before this council, I've consulted with Randy on three different occasions, along with our bond attorneys, because I felt that, again, one of my responsibilities as administrator is to bring you the best information based upon the information that is correct for all of us. And so with that in mind, based upon the discussions that we've had over the last month or so, both in this body and also in meetings that I've had with the bond attorneys and with Randy, I would like to ask Randy to kind of review some of the information that we have discovered or talked about in the last month to 6 weeks.
Thank you, Ron. So one of the things that was occurring when we were reviewing what our bond capacity would be and what bond choices we'd make, and that difficult decision you had because you've got three good things and what's going to be funded and so forth. One of the things that was going on was an opportunity had been presented to the village through the Farmland Preservation Committee of some potential land that was going to be possibly available, and that there was a closed session on that and discussions about it in general. The two issues kind of got on top of each other. There was some confusion in the community and with folks on what the process is for farmland preservation and then what the process is for bonding, and in fact, how those two are separated. So I just wanted to spend a minute letting the community know that they're entirely separate. The bond decisions are made based upon our bonding capacity and then your decision about where the money should be spent. But in regard to farmland preservation, there's a very particular process that must be followed by that commission in order to identify what properties are eligible for farmland preservation easements, and then the process by which the village would choose a property. So there were discussions held, but none of those discussions had yet allowed farmland preservation to go through that entire process. And I'm just going to read a couple parts of this for people's edification. So we've now identified what bond monies will be dedicated to farmland preservation or open space. And then here, what I'm going to read to you is the process that'll have to be followed to decide how to spend that. So this is under your ordinance 15-6 under duties of the Farmland Preservation Commission. And then bear with me. I usually don't just like to read things, but I think it's important that this gets into the record. Number one, to recommend funding sources, including but not limited to donations and grants to promote the preservation of farmland and open space, and in connection therewith, to help prepare grant applications that shall then be submitted by the village administration. Number two, to recommend criteria for qualifying properties and property owners and the ranking of properties for potential creation of conservation easements. So that piece there is the important part that is still to take place. There may be fantastic opportunities in the community, but until this process is followed, we couldn't seek any one of them. Because although it's not like a procurement process, it's not buying goods and services where there's a specific state statute that tells us how to do that. It's similar in the way that it is public money going to be spent on a particular private property for a particular purpose. So there has to, this process was put into ordinance to describe how to do that. So under number three, then, to develop and implement a procedure for responding to and negotiating with interested property owners and applicants for conservation easements. Number four, to develop, rank, and present to the governing body for its consideration completed applications for the purchase of conservation easements. So that, in a nutshell, is the process that will now go forward, and in cooperation between the administration and the Farmland Preservation Committee, bringing you back those lists of the process.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, Randy, so I understand on number two, you're saying there has to be a ranking of possible candidates for farmland preservation. One of the problems we have is that, as I understand it, those cannot be made public until a certain decision is made by the council to move forward.
Correct.
So how do we get the rankings? Is that always in a closed meeting? I mean, do they have to identify the specific properties?
So yes, and in the past when we've done this, there haven't been many candidates.
Right.
What I would recommend is we follow what has worked in the past, and there was the hiring of a consultant, a real estate agent, to assist farmland preservation with that process. And then farmland preservation, I think, needs to develop real criteria about how do you choose between property A and B? What's better for the village? What are we looking for? What is going to serve the most people? Some of the discussions we've had in the past, well, this property really isn't, it's in an isolated area and it's hard for people to see and get to, things like that. So those criteria can be public, but then as they apply it to applicants, the applicants themselves, and then the selection should be kept confidential until you folks are ready to make a decision.
So the onus really, at least the initial stages, is on the commission.
Yes.
To develop the possible properties, the criteria, the rankings.
And they've done this before, so they aren't going to be reinventing the wheel. But we, the administration and with the governing body should have input on, is this the criteria we want?
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir. Councilor Mira.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At what point in time is the pricing available to the public, or at least specific to the farmland preservation people?
So what we did prior to your service on the council, the last time that we did this, we had a series of closed sessions and discussions about how to choose these properties. And then there were some confidential applications brought in, and those choices were made. And so there are appraisals done on the properties, just like any other property acquisition process, because it's a significant amount of village money being spent for these preservation easements.
I think the question still is regarding the preservation people themselves. They have access to all that information with regards to pricing, or that's really not what they're dealing with?
I think that we should spend some time with that process, because when I got involved in the process last time, these first steps had already occurred. So I think we all should spend a little bit of time to see how the process should work. And then when it's confidential, because it's the discussions of potential purchase of property interests, and then when it becomes public and how. And then I liked, it was Mr. Cisco last time who was on contract with the village, who did those negotiations, and he was keeping the confidences between us and them as we went through the process.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Council.
Thank you, Mayor. The list of 4 things that you listed, how long have they been around? Like since the commission was first established, or?
I'm going to look for a date when this section was done last. There was adoptions done in 2010-09, I think, was the first time. So there was, the ordinance was put in place in 09. It was amended in 17, and I can't tell particularly what sections were amended at that point without doing a little bit of digging, but there's a reference at that point to section 3 being amended. So it's been around for a while, but 17 was the last time it was worked on, it looks
So
like.
Councilor Audio, it looks like 23 is when they.
Oh, yes,
amended
section 3 adopted 9/12/23.
So just last year.
You're correct.
Yeah. It's 6 months ago is when this was adjusted.
Thank you, Councilor Burkett.
Happy to help.
Councilor Murray.
Well, I think, didn't he, Mr. Burkett, didn't you have?
I did. I had 2 just points.
Councilor Murray.
Well, he was ahead of me. We're just kind of coming down the line, so let Mr.
Okay.
Burkett go ahead.
Go ahead. Councilor Burkett.
Just 2 points from the previous time we did conservation easements. If I remember correctly, there is a lot more outreach from the commission than there is inbound people submitting properties. I mean, anytime someone submits a property, they're willing to go look at it, but they've got a pretty thorough inventory, I think, of farmland and agricultural properties and open space properties, and they are actively reaching out to the owners of these properties. And then as far as the financials of it, they came to the council in private session, told us what properties they were interested in. At that point, we voted, or we didn't vote on anything, but at that point, we gave direction on yes or no. We thought it was worth pursuing appraisal on those properties since those are not free of charge, just so we wouldn't waste that money on something that the council didn't think met the criteria that the village wants. And then after that appraisal, there was an open vote to the public when we had all the numbers, and then we could vote openly in open session.
Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Audio, this brings up a question that maybe, do we need some form of NDA, non-disclosure agreement with the commission, so that when they are exploring these properties, that rumors and innuendos don't get out into the public?
That's one thing that I think we need to look into, Counselor, is how that process is done. I like the idea of that being done by someone who's hired to do that analysis. So all that information is within that person, like that a realtor. But the language that it says here, it could be delegated by the Farmland Preservation Commission, but here it talks about them doing that ranking. That would have to be done in private, and theoretically, all of you are required to keep confidences from any closed meeting as they would be. But I don't know about a non-disclosure agreement or not. They're a little bit only worth the paper they're written on.
Yeah, I know. I'm just worried that sometimes there are leaks that get out into the public or into the realm, so to speak. And it's those rumors that get propagated, whether they're true or not. So I'm just worried about that.
No, confidentiality is definitely important.
Yes, sir. Councilor Alsop.
I want to point out, and thank you, Councilor Audio, for that review of Chapter 15. The one criteria about ranking, I know the commission in their public speaking to us and in the closed session did not provide rankings of numbers 2 through 15 or 20 or whatever else, but they used the words crown jewel, and this was very clear to me, at least, that their ranking of the property that we were discussing was number 1. So whether that meets the requirements of the section on ranking of properties for potential creation, I'm not sure how thorough we want the ranking to be, but that was clearly their number 1.
You said there was no 2 through 15.
I got the impression there were. I don't know how long the list is, but they definitely said there were others. So I think while they didn't present it as a formal list.
We don't have any documentation that there are others. There may be others, but we don't have any documentation.
And that's what we have to clarify, is we got to get the process right, because we don't want someone in the community feeling that they were left out of the process when they wanted an opportunity to preserve their farmland with our assistance.
Also, another point, and it's probably not bad idea to go and look at the website for the New Mexico Land Commission.
Conservancy.
Conservancy, excuse me. And they talk about basically anybody can apply, anybody can get money for a conservation easement. They don't need bond money, contrary to what we had heard, that the only money that they can use is bond money. There is actually money up at the NMLC, and they have a whole routine that they follow that we are supposed to be following similarly. If we have people in the community who would like to do this and feel like they have been shut out, then they have recourse, potentially. If we don't follow our guidelines. Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, Melanie, you sent an email this morning about tomorrow's meeting. Are these the kinds of questions that they'll be able to answer in addition to possible funding options?
Yes, the executive director of the New Mexico Land Conservancy is coming down to answer questions about how our farmland preservation program fits in with their mission. And any other questions that might come up.
Yes, sir. Councilor Burkett.
So during my preparation for this meeting, I went to their website and reviewed all of their steps in the process as well. And their process is entirely directed at donations of property for conservation easement, and specifically costs about the landowners, specific costs the landowners actually have to pay to get those easements for the tax benefits. They don't anywhere address purchase of conservation easements on theirs. And I don't know that they specifically fund that, but they facilitate people getting conservation easements at the homeowner or at the landowner's cost. And we are in 100% compliance with their steps. So their steps also start with the landowner initiating or reaching out to the Conservation Authority, which in our particular village is.
I don't agree with anything you've just said about that. And we're going to find out more information tomorrow.
Well, the website is available to all.
It's designed to save the family farm.
It is.
It's designed to save the family farm from the tax benefit, from the tax burdens, and to give them some capital to work with. And they talk about the reevaluation of the land once the easement has been received. It lowers the property tax on that land.
The capital.
We'll ask the questions tomorrow and find out more about it, because we do believe that we've sort of drifted. The village has sort of drifted a little bit, and perhaps it's just us that have drifted. Perhaps it's just the administration who doesn't understand some of what is supposed to be coming to us from the commission. And we'll find out more about that tomorrow.
Okay, well, and I can send the link for everyone else to review as well. But
it's a real hard one, New Mexico Land Commission. Okay, anybody else? Okay. We are now at, do you have anything else? You and Randy, you're done?
Yes, sir.
So now we're going to move to Corralinos Forum. You have anybody?
Sure do. Tonight is our first night of the redesign of our agenda. So Corralinos Forum is now coming before Councilors Forum. Up first, we have Story White. And Story, if you could state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Story White. I'm at 550 Sagebrush Drive. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. I am with the Equestrian Advisory Commission, and I'm here to talk about just a moment about Viva Corrales, first of all. It's April 28th, and it's from 9 to 4. And right now we're gonna have a few equestrian demonstrations, but mostly we're gonna focus on children's activities. The kids can do some, equestrian, like pool noodles and artwork and stuff like that. So I hope you guys can come. The other thing is we are hoping, and we want to thank Lynn Sievers, and we also want to thank Michael Chavez for getting Top Farm ready for us, because it's our understanding that the sand is really deep, and so we're hopeful that it's gonna be
He's
ready
doing
for
a
us.
great job. And
Yes.
he's put a lot of sand throughout the village.
So yes, we're hopeful that it'll be ready for the horses and the people when we're ready to perform for everybody. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Caitlin Robinson, 4178 Corrales Road. I'm also here on behalf of CHAMP and the Equestrian Advisory Commission to invite you guys all out. We've been having a great time planning it. We had great success last year, but bring your kids, bring your grandkids, anyone you want. They can come pet a horse, paint a horse, ride a noodle pony. We've got all kinds of things planned, so we hope you guys can come out, and we're looking forward to getting the arena fixed because lots of people that use it. So thank you.
What time does that event start?
It will be from 9 to 4. So we're the Giddy Up part of Rad Strides and Giddy Up that Bikes and Pedestrian Commission is putting on in conjunction with Viva Corrales.
Thank you. Okay, up next is our representative, Miss Kathleen Cates.
We're so glad you were able to come.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, counselors. And for those who don't know me on Zoom, I'm your representative, your state representative, Kathleen Cates. I just came for a quick update to just let you know just some of the things. If you have questions about either capital outlay or bills that were passed this past 30-day session, I know that you don't typically have your legislator come and do the update, so know that you can reach out to me for that. I want to let you know that I participated in the Land and Water Summit, which showed off the Harvey Jones channel and the great stormwater system there, as well as the trees of Corrales. And so that was a great opportunity to bring statewide attention to our great village here in Corrales. I know that on April 9th, you'll be hearing a presentation about a possible commercial kitchen. I want to let you know, as your state representative, I strongly support this possibility for our village and for our state, our Sandoval County. I think that there's opportunity for funding there. I know that I will be glad to sit right next to you if this is a project you should decide to move forward with. I sit on the water committee. I've already talked to Chef John Young about, the water capture and different irrigation we can use for the agricultural part of the kitchen. We have an agricultural education area kitchen. That there is a lot of different opportunities there, either through New Mexico Finance Authority or other venues, and that I would be glad to work with you if this is something else that the council and the mayor has decided to adopt. And I'm available after the meeting if you have any questions. Thank you.
Right, and then I have one document that I was asked to read into the record that was emailed to me earlier today from Rick Toller. He said he can't be here this evening. And his statement reads, "The report of the ACE committee last meeting indicated that one of the main concerns of villagers about that project was traffic. The village has to address the traffic issue before embarking on any development that will bring more traffic. There's little that can be done in the short term about Corrales Road because it's a state highway controlled by NMDOT, but the little that can be done is not being done. Meanwhile, the problem on village-controlled side roads is not being addressed. I am at a loss as to why the mayor continues to delay and obstruct the implementation of obvious, simple measures to reduce the speeding problem where we have control. It isn't a money problem. Every month, the administrator reports that we got another $17,000 or $19,000 in interest. 3 or 4 months of this revenue would be enough to stripe, delineate, and add signage to most of the problem roads in Corrales. Another few months' revenue could be used for ticketing traffic cameras, which could partially pay for themselves while slowing speeders down. 1 month's revenue would likely pay for a school zone type crossing in front of the library. You have squandered yet another opportunity to make this the year of traffic safety in the village. Please get going and push the mayor to do what's right and make it safer for us, our kids, and our animals.
Thank you, Melanie.
And that's everybody.
That's it. Now we move to counselors' forum. Sections for informational purposes only, not for discussion or debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. Counselor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, I'm a representative of the village for the Rio Metro Regional Transportation District. We didn't have a meeting, a Zoom meeting in January or February. So this past Friday, the 15th, we had our first Zoom meeting this year. And what we talked about was reviewing and upgrading safety plans, passenger train emergency preparedness plans. They reviewed those and updated, but there wasn't a whole lot because they were pretty well written to begin with. The big thing that they looked at was the Rio Metro drug and alcohol policy. Of course, they have a zero tolerance for anybody working on the trains or the buses. And they reviewed definitions of what would constitute an evaluation for someone. The big thing in this section was that right now they do urine tests. The state is getting together certified labs so they can do swab tests. So it would be much easier to keep an eye on somebody that they think maybe is breaking the rules. So that was an important discussion. Two more things. They had some asset disposals, and they said that the reason they were getting rid of these couple of things was because they had zero market value. And the two things they talked about was that the siding at Alameda is now completed, so they can cooperate between the rail runner and Amtrak. Before, there wasn't any places to get off when one train was delayed and one train was on time. So they're building another siding down by Broadway. The one by Alameda is completed. And last but not least is on April 23rd, Miss Indian World will be riding on the Rail Runner to promote the Gathering of Nations.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comment? Yes, sir. Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, we had our meeting and I sent to everybody, I think I sent it and Melanie distributed, they did an update to the New Mexico DOT for the I-40 corridor from Trisco Vista west to the state line. So you all should have a copy of those slides as well. And of course, they're always talking about updates and what they're going to do and so forth. But anyway, take a look at that if you would. Also, this Saturday, I had the pleasure of waiting at Meadowlark on Corrales Road. And, we're going to have to do something about that intersection. And it's not going to be popular, I understand. Either we have to do a roundabout or we have to put a stoplight in, because right now you can't get on to Corrales Road when it's really busy off of Meadowlark. And I'm not in favor of a stoplight, because that means vehicles have to stop and you have to wait. They have to wait, and therefore the vehicles emitting emissions and so forth. But we need to find a way to buy right away and put in a roundabout, or look at it and get it on the tip schedule when it comes around again in probably about 2 or 3 years. So anyway, just put that on the back of your minds, because that intersection really is getting bad and we need to do something about it. And also in regards to Mr. Toller's email, we should be seeing sometime in the next meeting or two a resolution for a traffic study on La Entrada. Mayor said he's looking for money, but we should have that resolution before us and see where the council wants to go with it. Thank you.
Yes.
Can I just make one statement concerning that? I talked to Michael Chavez a while ago, and he was saying that, they'd be wasting money if they striped it right now, because they plan on repaving the road. So it would be kind of, I wonder if Mr. Thaller knows that.
You're talking about Lower Meadowlark?
No, on
La Entrada.
La Entrada?
on La Entrada, right. But sooner or later, they're gonna have to,
Yeah.
redo that, and they'd be wasting money. And I don't know if Rick if knows that. It's not like we're ignoring him.
No, it's the traffic study to see if there is a need for speed reduction on that road. So we would have to wait and see. But anyway, we'll wait till that resolution comes up and we can debate it then. That's all I wanted to do is just let you know it's going to be coming sometime in the near future.
It is a future agenda item.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. Move on to the consent agenda. Has everybody a chance to review the consent agenda? We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. Did you get that, Melanie?
Who was the second?
Second was,
Marie?
well, we had 2 or 3 of them.
I just had a question on that, on one of those.
Go ahead.
On the number 4, I was reading that, I think that's great to have a dance at the gym, but they were talking about the parents are gonna drop their kids off and then leave them. And I'm like, well, what about chaperones?
They have them.
All of that's taken.
It's part of the, it should be in there in the document that they've given us.
I just saw the traffic pattern and went, wait a minute.
Right. Yeah, no, they can't do that.
Right.
Yeah, they have to have chaperones there, but they're not gonna have all the parents there. Because we don't have places for them to park all of their cars.
I just wanted to make sure.
I mean, I think we have places to park all the
Okay, thank you.
cars. Okay, so there is no resolution, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Okay, let's move on to new business. Consideration action approval of resolution 24-14, acceptance and approval of fiscal year 2023 audit. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilor Mira. Do I have a second?
Second.
From Councilor Knight. Any discussion? Any questions? Okay. Councilor Mira, how do you vote?
Yes, sir.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Murray?
Yes.
Okay, passes. Consideration action approval of resolution 24-15, publish and post approval for ordinance 24-04, bond sale ordinance. Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilor Burkett. How about a second?
Second.
Is that you, Councilor Murray?
Also.
Oh, also. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
On page 125, I'm trying to get to, there was a math mistake about, here we go. This farmland preservation for the election of 2023, farmland preservation, 2 million, fire department, 1 million, road and.
That's the total.
The total is 4,000, not 3.
Correct. Yeah, the math is wrong on that. It shows a total of 3 million instead of 4 million.
Yeah, we've told them that. It'll all be corrected.
It's correct on page 76.
It's page, yeah.
This is 125.
125.
Anyone else? Councilor Murray?
Thank you. So my understanding was, okay, so out of that 2.4 million, we're only getting 2.31 or something like that.
Well,
because-
whatever it costs to pay for all the fees.
Okay, so they bond people were not able to take and fix that so that we got the full amount then, is that correct?
Well, he's gone.
Yeah, no, there's
There's a-
always costs associated with the bond sale, and that comes out of the overall amount.
Okay, so,
That's how it's been every single.
so it's equally distributed between all 3 bond issues?
No, it's a proportional amount. So the farm, more would come out of the farmland bond than would come out of roads and fire.
Okay,
Because that's how we've done it in the past.
okay, thank you.
Because it's not fair to make farmland pay all of the costs, but to make it proportional, it would be taking much more away from roads and fire than it would from.
So farmland pays for 95%, and the other 2 are split between that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so how do you vote, Councilor Murray?
Yes.
Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Woolman?
Aye.
And Councilor Muir.
Yes, sir.
Discussion of changes to Chapter 20, Article 2 of the Village Code regarding alarm permits.
I think that would be me.
So, do I have a motion to approve the changes to Chapter 20?
Actually, this is just discussion. This is the first time it's come.
Oh, shoot, I wanted, okay.
I mean, hey, I'd be happy to.
No, that's okay. Discussion of the changes. Chief, would you like to make a real quick comment?
Yes, sir. Mayor, council, good evening. And essentially, the reason for the changes when they, under the original alarm ordinance, the reason behind it was because we had our own dispatch center here, so this was a requirement for our citizens to come and register their alarms. It wasn't it wasn't a moneymaker by any means. There was an administrative fee, but the purpose of collecting the information was so that if we did have an alarm activation, we'd have contact information, responsible parties, alarm companies, so on and so forth. So we no longer have dispatch here in the village. So when people do call us and say, hey, I just moved here, just wanted to know what to do about my alarm, we put them in touch with regional dispatch and make sure that all their pertinent information is entered into the computer-aided dispatch CAT system. And so we have it. So the collection of the fees and the registration of the alarm within the village basically serve no purpose. So then, that brings us to the other part of the ordinance, which is the nuisance alarms, the false alarms. And fortunate to say, I'm knocking on the laminate here. It's not a huge problem in the village. Normally when we have an alarm that goes off accidentally more than 2 or 3 times, we have a meaningful conversation with the homeowners and they get it fixed. We haven't had to keep going back. If we did have one that was very repetitive and consuming a lot of our resources, we take it to the next level, but we're not going to walk up with our ticket books in our hands. We'll start with administrative notifications and so forth. And so that's the reason behind that second portion of the ordinance. But we really don't need to collect fees and keep their information on file here when we're not the ones dispatching the field personnel.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to be clear, the only fees we keep are exactly what you just described, the nuisance.
Yeah, if it ever reached that level, Councilor Alsobrook, where we did impose a fine because of the nuisance alarm, repeated false alarm responses, then yes, those fees would be collected. But hopefully we never reach that point. Right.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, sir, Councilor Murray.
Yeah, thank you. So, I was having a problem with some of this because where we're striking some things out, it looks like we might have missed. And I wish I had highlighted that too, but I don't know. I think what I will do is I will go back and reread this, and whatever I have questions, I'll forward it over to Mel.
Yeah, this is just the first phase.
Yeah.
Because this is a cleanup job and we're discussing it to clean it up.
Yeah, part of the cleanup was, and then it looked like there were some penalties that, based on fees that have been extracted that might not apply anymore. So anyway, I'll go ahead and review this and send Melody my comments rather than take up all night.
Discussion, okay, you ready to move on? Any other questions? Okay, move on to number 5, discussion of changes to chapter, thank you, Chief, I'm sorry. Discussion of changes to chapter 10 of Village Code regarding businesses.
Okay, so this one would be me. Mayor, Council. So we had come before you several months ago talking about some changes that needed to be made to the food trucks portion of our business registration or business ordinance. And then, so a lot of this is just cleaning up our ordinance. It's making our ordinance match with the language on the Secretary of State's website. So the Secretary of State's website refers to it as a business license. In our ordinance, it says business registration. And some feedback that I've gotten from the Comprehensive Plan Committee when they met with businesses was our ordinance is too confusing. They go to the Secretary of State and they hear they need a business license, and they come here and they're told they need a business registration. So part of this is just cleaning up language to make it all match. Another thing that we had encountered was, we were charged, well, the ordinance says we would charge food trucks an extra $100 per year in addition to their business license to have a vendor permit. And, nobody in the clerk's office had done that in quite some time. I can't even find exactly when it was last used. So we took that part out, but then we changed what was the vendor permits to a door-to-door solicitation permit, because we have nothing in our ordinance that regulates door-to-door sales. So we can't ban them outright. That's against the First Amendment, but we can regulate it. So the changes that we put into place is that any business that wants to come and do door-to-door sales would have to come and apply for a door-to-door permit. And in that permit, they would pay for the permit for the business, and then each salesperson that's going to go door-to-door would have to have a badge, and there would be a charge for that. And it would be kind of like a passport where they have to provide us a photo. So their badge will have a photo. It'll say, door-to-door vendor permit or badge. And then that gives that person the right to go door-to-door. And then they will be asked to respect anybody's no solicitation signs and no trespassing signs on their property. And these would only be good from dusk to dawn, because we don't want anybody out walking around in the village at night on our streets. Maybe don't have street lights. So those are kind of the main highlights of the changes. And then just trying to take things out. We're trying to take out any reference to exact dollar amounts in ordinances, so that it makes it easier when we need to raise our fees later on. All of that will come out and just say fees will be adopted by resolution of passed by the governing body, and it will be in our fees schedule, and the council can look at that on a regular basis.
Questions?
Yeah, actually, page 70, section 1077, the entire section has been deleted. And it deals with realtors, contractors, and developer permits. And I'm wondering if there's any place else in our ordinances which covers permits for those three categories.
So they're still required to have a business license, and in that they're required to report their GRT to the village. And that's basically what that form was just saying that the realtor agreed to pay that fee. And on that one, I actually reached out to other municipalities and said, hey, do any of you do this? And no other municipality that responded back to me said that they do that. Everybody just has realtors and construction companies get their business license. So basically it was kind of penalizing those particular businesses because they had to pay for their business license. And then they also had to pay, if you read it carefully, what we're taking out is they had to have a permit for every location where they had a house for sale. So, and one of the things we heard from businesses too through the comprehensive plan committee was that Corrales is not a fun place to do business. We are very business unfriendly. And I think we would like to change that. I know I would like to change that. I don't know how the council feels about that, but I do feel like there's some things where we were kind of penalizing certain types of businesses. And I don't think that's, also, I haven't really chatted with Randy on this specifically, but I don't know if it's, legally a thing that is okay to do either.
So we want to be consistent and fair.
Yeah, and not duplicitous. So I do have one other question. Do we know if we're collecting all the GRT from houses that are sold in the village? For example, if a real estate agent works for a company in Albuquerque or Santa Fe, do we know if we're collecting GRT?
There's really no way for us to track
or if
that.
they have a business license to operate in the village.
I mean, really what we're doing is we're working very closely with Sherry, and when today we got notice from a resident called me up and said, hey, I was just on Nextdoor and there's this person advertising that they're selling bread out of their home here in Corrales. Do they have a business license? And so we looked and no, they don't. So we were able to track down an email address, and we reached out to that business and said, hey, you may not know, but you're not following the rules, and here's what those rules are. So, I mean, really, unless we drive around and look at, homes for sale, we don't really have a way to track any of that.
Tracking GRT is very difficult. You can track by general groupings, but not specific entities.
No, I understand.
Isn't that correct?
Well, you can't identify the specific business per se. Right.
It becomes even more difficult, Counselor, sometimes once it gets to Santa Fe and DFA, as far as how they break it down, because they may slice it into no pun intended, they may slice it into another category that we're not looking for. And then we always struggle with them to break down as much as we can as to where the GRT is coming from, even for regular businesses that we see in the commercial zone.
I'm just thinking, a loaf of bread is different, a GRT, than an $800,000 house. And there must be a way to track that.
Well, we have tried in the
We
past.
may have an answer from our state representative.
We have tried in the past on many occasions. Oh,
Can you come up to the microphone so people can hear you?
did you want to speak? Or would you please make a comment?
I can't make a comment on a bread seller, but I will say when a house is for sale, it goes through a title company, has to with the deed. And on that title company, based on the address of the house, not where the realtor's office is, but the address of the house, they have a GRT code. And where the title company is collecting GRT, homes are paid 2 GRTs. It's one of those pyramiding GRTs. So the title company pays the GRT, and then also the selling agent pays the GRT.
Wow.
But only
Thank you.
on their profit. But
I
only on their-
want to make a comment before I forget. Is the person making bread, do they have a commercial kitchen?
No.
You don't have a Department of Health file. That was, I'd be more concerned about the Department of Health.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, John.
Oh, no, just to further Councilor Waldman's question, and you mentioned it, we did try to take this up some years back. We tried to insert ourselves into the title transfer process legislatively, and we couldn't do that.
Little science.
What we wound up doing, yeah, right, exactly. With the, so what we wound up doing was just the best outreach we could to the realtors based in the village, who then helped spread the word. But really, it's,
But this,
if they use the wrong code, then they use the wrong code. So we rely on the good faith of the realtors we know.
and the title company.
And the realtors, you're right, and the realtors will use the wrong code. I probably use the wrong code. But it doesn't, when the sale goes through, is the title company that's doing that, and I have a hard time making it easy.
And our business license form that a business fills out, it does have that code on there. So we do say, when you report your GRT, please use this code. It's also on our website under the starting a business tab. It says, please use this code when you report your GRT.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
just curious, have you gotten other specifics where Corrales is unfriendly to businesses, things we should look at?
Those were kind of the main things that I've heard. I know the Comprehensive Plan Committee had a whole session with business owners, and they plan on having some very specific recommendations to the village. But yeah, they came and just mentioned to me, this might be something you might want to start working on now because
Well, we have
it has come up.
a resident who happens also to be head of planning and zoning, who is head of the New Mexico Chamber of Commerce. That's something we might reach out to Rob Black and talk to him about how the village is perceived by business.
Yeah, we can talk to him. Sure. Yes, sir.
2 comments. One, another follow-up to Councilor Waldman, and to Melanie did. A lot of the business complaints that I hear are from contractors based on our planning and zoning. So take that for every grain of salt that it's worth, right? Exactly.
Well, I don't know if you guys remember, but we, in fact, the village of Corrales have had issues with planning and zoning.
From time to time.
Well, at least twice. So
My second comment actually is the discussion on the specific agenda item, village code regarding businesses. Section 1030, exemption from fee. So I do this with my tractor club hat on. The paragraph 3 says church and civic clubs that hold events to raise money, the proceeds of which will be used in the village, or traditional fiestas or events, shall be exempt from paying a business license fee. And then paragraph 1 above talks about businesses participating in a special event sponsored by the village. So the Tractor Club's a New Mexico nonprofit. We hold an event, we raise money, but the proceeds don't always go to someone in Corrales. For instance, this summer, proceeds will be going to Bernalillo 4-H. So I just want to make sure that the intent is purposeful, that an entity like the Tractor Club should obtain a business license in order to engage in the.
And all of these still need to be vetted by Randy's office too. So this was just kind of the initial kind of presentation to you and say, get a feedback from you that, yes, we want to move forward with these. And then next I'll go to Randy's office and he'll double check everything and make sure, like I like to say to them, please legal this up for me. And make sure that we're not, because some of these we did borrow from other entities and we want to make sure that.
The Tractor Club can afford the $35. That's not the problem at all.
Well, we don't want to let you, violate the we don't want to violate the anti-donation clause by letting you off.
Exactly.
Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. So along those lines, then, if we exempt certain entities from the business license, does that create any kind of liability for us if the event is held in the village?
We gotta look at Randy.
If we exempt someone and they have an event in the village, we have liability. We have liability, anything in the village, just.
But are we self-insured, right? Or we're.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at liability questions, it really comes down to, were we responsible for the negligent act? And if we wouldn't be just in that instance, just because they were exempt from paying the tax, for example, we would have to have an active negligence.
Anybody else?
I do have one question to the council that this might be your place to decide this debate. Currently, our late fee or our late renewal period is 90 days. And we don't know if we should reduce that to 60 days or leave it at the 90 days.
Is there some kind of direction given somewhere? Like,
No,
does the state have anything to say about that?
I thought leaving it at 90 days would be good. Sky is the one that does do the business registration. She feels like 60 days would be a more reasonable time period to give people.
Well, it sounds pretty arbitrary regardless. Well, then make it 60 days. Actually, well, whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, because right now they get, a grace period of 90 days. And then once they pay that fee, their date still sets back to what their original date was. So they're still paying for a year, but they have 90 days in which to renew it.
If you don't make a payment on a credit card, what is it, 25 or so days, then they charge you interest?
And we do have a $10 late fee that kicks in.
Do they get charged a late fee at 60 or 90 days, whichever it is, or they get
Right now
charged?
it's at 90.
90 days.
So
What's the late fee?
$10.
Okay, that sounds like something we can just do. And then the council can say, oh yeah, that's okay. Or they can say, no, we want to make it 60 days or 30 days. It sounds pretty arbitrary, actually. So
Kind of is.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? Anybody want to enter into this one about days or whatever? Yes, sir. Councilor Alsterbrook. I would guess you would say something.
I just wonder if was it 90 days to allow for, folks who might have a seasonal home occ, they have a license and they go elsewhere for
It's
the summer.
$35 a year.
Something like that.
Okay.
And maybe that was why it was 90 days.
Maybe that's why it started. Okay.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
And it may have been because everything was done by mail previously too. We would send out the note, and now everything we do mostly by email. So it's, post office has gotten awfully slow.
Yes, hence snail mail. Okay, anybody else want to talk? It looks like we have future agenda items, presentation about a commercial kitchen, presentation from Intel. Erica Edgerly is going to come and do that.
No, it's her replacement. And
Her replacement? Okay.
His name
Frank
is.
Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you.
Frank Gonzalez.
Oh, okay. I thought you told, well, anyway. Approval of ordinance 24-03, which is a zone map amendment. It'll also be on the 9th. We'll have a liquor license hearing for Mulas on 4/23. Couldn't come soon enough. We have an Arbor Day proclamation, 4/23, and then the traffic study for La Entrada, Corrales Road to Loma Larga, courtesy of Stuart Murray. We will try to find an appropriate time once we get some idea of the cost so we can make a decision.
Okay, so anyway,
I would hope that we could do it by the 23rd.
As I told Melanie, last year I asked for 20,000 to be put in for digital signage, and if that money hasn't been spent, let's use it for that then.
You know, if it's not nailed down or has a name on it, it might have been spent. I mean, you know, it's in the budget. It's in the budget. It may have, but it's in a,
Yeah, I may have to put it, maybe next time I put money in, I'm gonna have to nail it down.
you're going to have to nail it down.
I
Yeah.
guess so.
Or at least you're going to have to talk a long time and real nice to Michael. Anyway,
Anyway, it was there and I was hoping maybe we could.
I would anticipate, based on what Groman told me, that we can work it out. The question I had for him was, can we get it started and done within the 90 days that you talked about? And he seemed to think it would be no problem. So,
Okay, very good.
okay, since we have completed the business session of the meeting is adjourned.